I think sometimes we forget as builders what we know, what we do, our terminology, our lingo is so different. To us, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But to someone else, they got to understand it.
Yeah.
So I really try to communicate that to people.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We're back here in the shed this afternoon with I'd like to say a good mate of mine now. We've interacted for quite a few years on social media and phone calls and text messages and stuff, but unbelievably quality builder, boy from the Sunshine Coast, but moved to the bush, did a bit of time out west. So big warm welcome to Craig from Stuart Homes and Renovations. How are you, mate?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Mate, thanks for taking the time to drive down this afternoon. Like, it's a 2-hour drive for you to come down here and jump on the show.
Yep.
So you had a good run back because we're expecting you to be a bit later and we're still getting ready when you showed up.
Nah, traffic was good in the end. A bit slow at the start, but we got there.
Look, I take my hat off to Craig. He's a good bloke. He's definitely a country boy. But we had the privilege, actually 12 months ago last week. So
yes.
If anyone follows me, you'd know we just wrapped up that CLT home up at Moffat Beach. And Craig was following everything on social media, and he rang me up one day and said, hey, like, let me know when you're installing those panels. I'm really interested in that product. I'd love to come and sit across the road and watch. And I said, fuck that. If you're coming down to watch, you can bring your nail bag and help. So, yeah, he ended up coming down. He bought, in the end, he bought your son. He was apprentice, I think, at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, it wasn't my son, it was the other apprentice.
Oh, the other
Kyle,
apprentice?
yeah.
And one of his lads, leading carpenters.
Leader chippy, yeah, Mitch.
And he's jumped in and gave us a hand. You end up being there for a week.
Yeah, for a week.
And
we had a ball. We loved it. It was great. Something new, and all about learning and getting experiences.
Yeah, and something I really took away from that week and spending that week on site with you was just you had lots of little tips and hints, like just those little things that make the job that extra 1% and make it that little bit easier. Like just simple things like one of the panels was the CLT panels had a bit of a bow in it and we couldn't move the thing around. So throwing some screws in it, getting some bars on it. Like, yeah, it was really good.
I think it's a collaboration. Like I think when carpenters and tradesmen come together, I think there's no one way. I think everyone has an idea, and it's something that I try to incorporate with my guys at work is I'm open to everyone's opinion. Yeah. Put it in, and somewhere on the line we'll come up with a solution on how it works.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah. And I encourage even my first year apprentices. I say to them, no question is a silly question. Put it in there because it might not be the answer, but it might trigger someone else's thought to how things happen. Yeah. And I think it's always good. And the boys feel part of it then. It's not just being told what to do all the time. They get to have a little bit of a say and an input in it.
I think it's really important, that sort of thing. Like I don't think I did enough of it until probably the last few years, and I'm definitely very passionate about it now. But I think you're 100% correct. Like it makes them feel part of the team. And I think something I've learnt probably in the last 12 months, like it doesn't matter if you've been doing something for 20, 30 years, or you've been doing something for 3 years, or a first year apprentice. Yeah. Someone might just have that bit of a thought or an idea that when it's tied together with something else, can solve a problem or allow something to be done a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100% on that. And I think the guys feel part of it. They know that they're getting results, and then I also like to give them credit for that sort of stuff as well.
And it really helps with culture, doesn't it? Like,
culture's amazing when that sort of thing happens.
Like it makes everyone feel like they're valued and that their input is important. And it doesn't matter at what level.
Yeah, with the culture thing, because we use an app called Voxer that we sort of communicate with, I try to leave every Friday afternoon a bit of a message for the boys. Yeah. Thanks for the week, enjoy the weekend. And I find that goes a long way too.
That's awesome.
Just reiterating that you appreciate what they do. They get paid for what they do, but I think it's just on a more personal level. Yeah. I don't do it every week, especially when there's been some big weeks or there's been some full-on stuff going on. I think it just makes them feel that they're appreciated with what they do.
Sometimes, most of the time, it is those little things, that make the most difference. Like sometimes it doesn't matter about the bonus or the extra money in the paycheck. Like it can be as simple as just giving someone a pat on the back or taking the time to send a message or give a call and just say, hey guys, really appreciate your work this week.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I found when we did the CLT with you. Your guys on site, they accepted us because, you sort of get that, like, who are you guys? What are you guys doing here? But your boys welcomed us in, and we actually made that connection really quick, and the team worked really well. And I suppose they bounced things, we bounced things, and we just got a good result
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And there was a few little quirky things that come up, but they were happy to ask us, and they were happy to take our ideas forward to come up with a solution for it.
Well, I think it went both ways, mate. Like you're a very approachable person, and like everyone on that site was willing to learn, and we're all learning because it was the first time I'd done it. I'd spent bloody 2.5 years looking at it on paper and sleepless nights and going through over all the documents, and it's but yeah, having it show up, and then obviously we had quite a few hiccups that first week, right. And it was a bit of a learning curve for all of us. But I really think the industry needs more of that collaboration, like trades accepting other trades and talking to each other, and builders talking to, like that's why this podcast is around. Like that's why you're sitting here, like having conversations, like because none of us know everything.
And I think that's the big thing, is that some of us get closed minds and they don't want to learn. Just because something's been done a certain way for a long time, industry's changing. There's new products, there's new ways of doing things. You know, we're getting different cyclone ratings, different types of screw fixings. And if you don't open up your mind and look at them and see if they're an option to work for you, the old school, as much as I promote old school carpentry skills, there's new skills and new techniques coming through.
Yeah. Well, then you start combining those things, don't you? Like that's where I think, like I love the old school carpentry, like all the notching out and housing timbers and all those types of things. But then, some of the brackets and the fixings and the stuff that's available to us these days, like it does make life a lot easier. But it's good having the knowledge of both.
Yeah, and I think that's where you need to incorporate them together.
Certain situations, especially on renovations. And look, for those of you that aren't following Craig on social media, check him out. Stuart Homes and Renovations. You've been doing, so Craig's done a bit of work on the Sunshine Coast, but the bulk of your work now is up in Gympie and around that hinterland area, isn't it?
Yes.
So, and I love that area. Most of my family's from that area. It's a beautiful part of the world, but it's Craig's been doing a job in the main street of Gympie, Mary Street, it's been going for a long time.
2 years.
It's like I follow it on social media. Like it's been a very challenging job, hasn't it? But you've come up with some pretty extraordinary solutions to solve the problems on that site.
Yeah, and we're lucky. Our client is like really understanding. So this guy lives in Perth. I met him once for half an hour. He flew over towards the end of COVID to see his sick mother. And other than that, we communicate, email, phone calls, and I do lots of videos for him.
Yeah.
But the whole job every day is a problem-solving solution.
Yeah.
That's what you got to come up with. And
so what's the age of that building like that?
I've got a photo of it in 1907.
Yeah. So you're 115 odd years old.
Yes.
Like obviously construction methods back then were very, very different. But for those people listening or watching that don't know, like Mary Street is renowned for, like back in the day, it flooded almost every year. And like even now it floods every 10, 15 years. Like it's the main streets basically in a bit of a valley, and the river comes up and it floods and then it goes down pretty quickly. And the locals are just pretty much become used to when the floodwater's coming, empty the shops out, let the water come through, go back in, clean it up, go back to work.
Hose them out, go back in again.
So like that in itself and that position it's in, like I know you've had a lot of problem solving to do with drainage and water flowing under the building and those types of things. Like it's pretty extraordinary.
So this particular building doesn't flood. It's currently above the latest highest flood that we've had. Another probably half a metre would have been a different story.
Yeah.
But part of what it is, and I've taken a little bit to sort of get my head around some of this and some of the locals that sort of complain about what's going on, is that when it was built, like you said, over 100 years ago, we never had a footpath. We never had a main street. It was all dirt. So even though it had really short posts, any water off the back bank would run under the building and come out the front. And as progress has come along and we've built up, we've shut off all that front section.
Yeah.
So when we went there to investigate it, why the one shop was a bit smelly with, mold and dampness, when I cut a hole in the floor, the ground was just soaking wet. Yeah,
so that's the type of thing. Like there's so many builders around that just have never worked on that type of project. And like this is a little bit off topic here, but this is where I think it's super important when someone's looking for a builder. You have to find someone that's got some experience in the type of work you're doing.
Yes.
And like you probably hadn't had experience with that type of thing before, but you had enough knowledge to know and do investigations and figure out, well, progress has happened. They built some block work up. They've concreted the road. They've put curb and channel in. They've blocked water flow off and like solved the problem. Whereas, can you imagine if a builder had taken that job on that just had no idea or no, I guess no open enough mind to look into those things further and just went in there, put a new floor down, fitted out the inside and still had all that moisture sitting under the building.
Yeah, and it'd be a constant problem.
Yeah.
So when we removed the timber floor and the joist and everything else, we've built what you call a waterbed. So we've actually shaped all the ground, taken it all the way down across the two shops. It comes into a culvert which goes into the main stormwater under the footpath, and we've directed the water. So what I said to the client was, I can't stop your water, but I can channel it and put it in a certain area. Yeah, and bring it in. So we, talking to the engineers, basically I come up with designs and got them to sign off and approve on it. So the whole slab sits up on a whole series of little piers. And I suppose being a little bit inventive was how to work out to make all these piers and form them up. So we went and bought buckets. I went and bought about 60 buckets and we cut the bottoms out and screwed them together so that I could get all the right heights of the buckets to go into place instead of building lots of boxes and trying to brace them and everything else.
Yeah.
And then we brought 80 cube of blue metal. Once we shaped it all, geotech fabbed it and brought 80 cube of blue metal. But then you got the problem with you're in the main street. How do you put 80 cube on the road?
I saw this video on Instagram. I think it's a genius.
Yeah,
tell them about what you did.
Yeah, so we've gone up the back street, which is about 75 metres away, and we've run 150 mil PVC pipe from the back street all the way down through. We got permission off that spare block, the owners, run it down through there, through the fence, all the way down the back, and then we've run it through a back window into the building. So we built a hopper out of some like sheet ply, but the gravel wouldn't slide. So then we put metal on it, and it still wouldn't slide. So then we went and bought a 250 mil PVC pipe with a reducer, and we cut the end of it and heat gun and opened it all up. Because I talked to the concrete plant and got the guys to bring it to me in the concrete truck, wash all their trucks out, and they just brought me clean gravel. And we could shoot that into the hopper and the pipe that we made and then slide it all the way down. But then we sort of got a problem where it wouldn't slide properly, so we had to start cutting holes in it so we could get it going. And we had to run water with it, which I didn't want to do. But we already had water in there because there's a little spring inside this shop. So 3 days before the rain comes, the water starts coming out of the ground. So we already shaped it up for the water to get away. So we just filled the trucks full of water, and then we put 80 cube.
Yeah, it was a genius, mate. I saw your Instagram video. I'm like, fuck, that's thinking outside the box. Like, you didn't have access. You come up with a solution. Like, and they're the types of things that you only get with experience. And like, so your younger guys that are working with you now, like, they're going to remember that for their entire career. And
definitely.
And another similar situation might come up down the track, and they're going, holy shit, remember that day when we were with Craig and we made that chute down the 75 metres? Like,
so the chute cost $500. Between the steel pegs and the pipe and everything else, it was $500 worth of pipe. And as I said to the client, there's no other way we're getting that in there for $500. Obviously our labour as well.
Mate, you would have to get traffic permits, shut the street down, get some sort of mini machines to... Because like there's awnings over the front of that shop.
Awnings over the shop and all that sort of stuff.
You know where to dump it. Like
no.
So I think I take my hat off to you, and I think for me that is what I love about building. Like I don't think I could ever just build volume off the shelf homes. Like, I love that challenge. I love thinking about things and coming up with solutions, and it I don't know, it keeps me going.
I'm the same. So whether we're doing a custom house for somebody or it's that sort of work, I think it keeps you alive, keeps you thinking. It's that problem solving. And when I was an apprentice, at the time, I worked with who I classed as an old guy. I was like 18 and he was like in his early 50s, which is like me now. And I thought he was an old bloke. But he taught me and used to say to me, like, you got to be able to problem solve. If you make a mistake, you got to be able to fix it. And I think too, in the renovation world, I call it marrying it together. So if you've got a building and an old building and you're putting a new piece on it, and the old building's out of plumb, at some point in time you're going to have to put something out of plumb, even though it goes against the rules of carpentry. But because it looks right. Whereas if you put a
you've
plumb
got to marry it in,
and the owner comes in, they will say your work's wrong because it doesn't match the house. So you've got to marry things together, and sometimes it's the illusion of the eye, even though you're wrong, but you're right. Because a lot of people will look at things and they don't know what the problem is, but they know something's wrong and they'll blame you for it.
Well, that's one of the hardest part with renovations, like whether it's trying to marry in a a floor system or walls or cut a roof in. Like there's some point where you've got to give a little bit,
Yeah,
like, to get to the best outcome.
that's right.
But mate, just to go back a little bit, because look, most builders struggle with clients at the best of times, even when they're seeing them every week. Like you're dealing with an extremely difficult site, a difficult job,
Yep.
not in a bad way, but a lot of variations on that project.
Constant variations.
And you've met the client for half an hour and he lives, 6 hours flight away?
Yeah, whatever Perth is, mate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So obviously this is the sort of stuff that really interests me, and I think it's really good for people listening, builders and tradies and homeowners as well, because is that all, like, have you been able to keep that relationship because you're good at communicating?
Yeah. I communicate with him all the time on a regular basis. And there was a few times when we had an Energex hold up, waiting for power to be sorted, and we are not on the job, and I actually hadn't spoken to him in a month, and he actually contacted me and said, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't have anything to report. And then I was sort of like, well, this guy needs to hear from me.
Yeah.
Because nothing was happening. So I was sort of like doing another job, but put it to the back of my mind until we kicked off again. But he goes, just, flick me an email, even a few weeks. Nothing's changed. This is where we're at. Just for his peace of mind. But I do videos and talk over them, and similar to your sort of thing, go through, explain stuff so that he can see. Because he's a geologist, he's retired, so he has some sort of understanding. But me doing the videos and being able to point and say, this is what we found, this is what we're doing, and this is how I'm going to address it.
Clear communication is key to a successful project, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've been talking to a few people about this just recently with Live Like Build. Like, you're a member of Live Like Build. You have been for quite a while. You're one of our founding members, I think.
Yes, right.
And something I've really sort of come to realise lately, and it's been doing a lot of reflection on myself, like, We've obviously developed so many systems, processes, techniques, communication, all that type of stuff now to deal with everything in a building business and to be able to run a very successful, profitable business. But the thing that I've realized is I can give all that knowledge to people, but it's up to the individual what they do with that.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think to get it to a level where you have a successful business, you've got to be open-minded, and you've actually got to do a lot of work on yourself. Because all the documents, PDFs, systems and processes in the world ain't going to work if you can't communicate with people.
That's right. Communication is a big thing.
Yeah. And be open enough to listen to people, take other people's ideas and opinions on board. Even like we talked about before with the team and the culture, like giving people, like, listening. Like, a lot of people don't listen enough, do they?
No, they don't. And I find too that everyone has a limited amount of knowledge, or they think they know. So this is like, your mum and dads and homeowners and your clients. How I explain something to you will be different to how you explain something to the next person. So I always say, not only my team, but to my clients, if you don't understand what I'm explaining to you, tell me so I can tell you a different way or break it down differently. Because I think sometimes we forget as builders, what we know, what we do, our terminology, our lingo is so different.
We do it every day.
Any other industry, and we do it every day. We see it. To us, it's nothing.
Yeah.
But to someone else, they got to understand it.
Yeah.
So I really try to communicate that to people.
When you can communicate it clearly and in a way that the other person gets it, it really does change the game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you get a client that trusts you, I guess has confidence in what you're going to deliver.
Yes.
And probably most importantly, values you.
Yep.
Like, they treat you as a professional.
Yeah. And that's so true.
Yeah.
And then if you come across something that's a bit different, they'll listen and understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like, over the years, earlier days, when you're not communicating properly, I've had that experience where you've got clients that are upset because, they think that you're trying to do the wrong thing by them. You're doing the right thing, but you haven't communicated to them properly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, at the end of the day, building is like, it doesn't matter what you're building. There is so much involved in there, and a lot of people probably don't appreciate it. And when you get to renovations, it becomes even more involved.
It does. And no two jobs are the same. You can do, a bedroom, ensuite and a lounge room extension on two houses, but they'll be totally different.
Yeah.
Age of the house, the style, all that sort of stuff changes. The ground, heights, everything.
Yeah. So do you, like I know you do the pack process.
Yep.
I'm obviously a big advocate for it. We created it. It's
Yep.
I think it's the only way builders should operate. But you've had a lot of success with the pack process, haven't you? And
We have, yes. Yeah.
I know.
And I won't do a job unless I do the pack process.
Yeah.
And I've had clients ring me 3 and 4 times saying we'd like you to do it, but they don't see the reason why they should have to engage in the pack process.
Yeah.
And I had one lady probably 12 months ago, she rang me 4 times and she said, we want you to come, just come to site. And I said, I'm happy to come to site the first time as what I call a meet and greet,
Yeah.
give them an hour and a half of my time. But I said, after that, we're going to go into the pack process. And I just couldn't get her to see the benefit in it. And so we didn't go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like even that's a valuable lesson, like sticking to your guns, like
Yeah.
developing a system and process in your business. That's how you operate. If someone doesn't value your business and your systems and your processes, it's okay to say they're not the client for me.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think another side of the pack process, and this happened to us recently, it's not only about getting the right job for the client and making sure you're doing your due diligence and looking at all the possibilities and as many unforeseens as you can see, it's finding out whether that client's a good match for you. And that's,
I love it.
That's another really important thing.
How many builders, and I did this, how many builders get caught up, just they need the work, cash flow shit it, and they just, I need the job. And I know, like, I can't believe I used to do it, but like, you know, in your stomach,
Yep.
it's the wrong client, but
Yep.
you're like, I need the money. Like, where's my next check coming from? Like, I just need to do the contract. Oh, I know it's going to be trouble, but I'll put up with it.
Yeah.
Like,
Done the same thing because I think, especially going back when I started and we were younger, and then when Lisa got married and a young family, all you're thinking about is survival. So you go to work and another job comes up. You don't think, oh, is that the right job for me? So you take it on, you price it, you win it, and you do what you have to win that job, just to think you've got to put, food on the table. But as things are changing with Elevate, Live Life Build and the pack process, and you get older and a bit smarter, we hope, you sort of see that not necessarily every job.
yeah,
And I'm also telling people I'm extending my workload where
Yeah.
I'm at, saying I'm this far away.
yeah,
And then you get understanding too whether those people want to wait.
Yeah.
So one of my first questions I ask people these days is, when would you like to do this project? Oh, we're ready to start in 3 weeks. Yeah, well, I can talk to you next year.
Have you got plans? No, I haven't got plans, but I want to start in 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, then you sort of find out those people tire kickers.
Yeah,
And, back in the day, you'd spend a lot of time. We've always broken our quotes down, lots of pages, lots of information, and then you find out they're getting 6 or 7 quotes.
Yeah.
And you lose a job for $500.
Yeah.
Even though you've got a lot more in there, but all I've done is look at the bottom line. And another thing I don't do is I won't send my quotes out to people. I like to sit with them
Yeah.
and go through it.
Yeah.
And you can sort of tell certain people, as soon as they flick all the pages and go to the bottom line, that's what they're looking at, which is important to everybody.
Yeah.
But what's in the volume of it? What am I getting for that money?
Oh, mate, I've given up with, like, I do the same thing. We always present our first round of costings.
Yep.
But I've given up trying to go through it. I basically sit down and go, look, I know you want to know what the figure is, so we'll flick to the back page. I'll tell you what the
Yeah.
figure is, and then we'll go through what's involved.
Yeah.
And,
And I'm similar to that too these days. But at least you get the opportunity to explain to them
Yeah,
why there's costs there.
yeah,
Why is it costing us much money? What's in there? And then you might have options on how you can adjust it if it's not where they want to be.
yeah. Mate, I'd love to get your opinion on something else I've been thinking about. So, like you mentioned then about figuring out the tyre kickers.
Yep.
And I don't know, the more I'm working on myself and just learning more about who I am and my personality and other people's personalities and those types of things. I used to talk about tyre kickers all the time, and something like with everything I'm doing in the industry now, something I've really started to realise is, yes, there is tyre kickers out there. There's people that just are going to shop around. That's just the type of people they are.
Yep.
But the reality is they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't know where to start or
Yes.
know what the process is, and probably the biggest one is they have no understanding of the value of things. So I've sort of changed my tune on tyre. Like, I used to call everybody tyre kicker.
Yeah. And maybe that's the wrong terminology because I'm a bit like you. I'll actually say to people, what do you think this will cost? And they'll say, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I say to people, yeah, but you've got an idea in your mind how much you'd like to spend. Do you want to spend 50, 100, 300?
Yeah.
And put it back onto them like that and go, if you sort of tell me, one, where your project spends at, or what do you think this is going to cost? Then we can start to say, well, hey, you're in the paddock, or no, you're not. And we've got a project coming up where ladies moved a house, loves the house, bought the house because of the house, but she wants to change the roof line.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about project spend and stuff,
Yeah.
and we did no paperwork, nothing. We just done some rough numbers.
I love the project spend. I've got you off the budget.
Yeah, no, we're all about the project spend.
Yeah,
It's in my documentation and everything, you know. And I had a conversation with her and just put some square meters together on roofing and the timbers and stuff. And I said, we're at your project spend and we haven't even had labour yet.
Yeah.
You know, you got 4 chippies, probably 3 or 4 weeks, and this and this and this.
Scaffold. And,
and everything else that goes into it. And it was just a reality check.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's got other options, but it was really good to put something down there for people to understand.
It's like costs in our game is so hard, isn't it?
Yes,
like,
it
and I recorded a video on site the other day. We're doing a pack process on this house that the builder's gone broke. It's a shit story, and it's not a job we would normally get involved in. But anyway, we're looking at it for the client, and I did this video on site, and it won't post on socials, and it's probably a good thing because I ranted on a bit. But it is so hard for people. Like when you've got builders that are charging next to nothing to build a 4-bedroom home, and then you've got quality builders that are building architectural homes, like the gap between the two is so enormous.
Yeah, so far apart.
And there's nothing else like it out there. Like if someone wants to buy a car, you can get online and you can look at 5 different brands of cars, and you can compare you can compare this one's got this features, this one's got these features, like this one's this much, that one's that much. Like it's easy. Like same, you go to the grocery shops, you can buy these apples or those apples. Like
That's right.
When it comes to building,
Yeah.
it's just a minefield. Like, and that's what I'm such a big advocate now for, obviously the pack process, but when people are looking for a builder, it needs to be about the relationship.
Yes.
Like it should never be about what the cost is. Like you find a builder that you can trust, that you can work with. And like I'm another big fan of, like, I don't mind if someone wants to build with you. Like they might not be my type of personality. Like
That's right.
we might do the exact same job.
Yep.
And we might even be the same price. But they're going to get a better outcome with you because they get on better with you.
You've got to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you've got to have connection. And that to me, that should be the biggest thing people are looking for in a builder. Like interview builders, find someone that you connect with, that you trust, you value, you treat as a professional, and just trust them to do their job and price the job and build you a nice home.
Yeah, and price it fairly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things I say to people when I explain the pack process to people, is the first priority thing is education and collaboration.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to people. You know, you've got to collaborate between yourself, the drafty, architect, designer, and the builder.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And then I tell people it's my job to educate them on why we're doing stuff and how we're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I sort of have a bit of an analogy that I say to people: if you've got a retaining wall, 110%.
Yeah.
You don't skimp on anything. If it means you've got to have a Laminex bench top instead of a stone bench top, that's what happens.
Yeah.
You can change that. You can't fix that retaining wall when it leaks.
Yeah.
And I just sort of tell people that and explain that to them so that they know you're putting their money in the right place so it doesn't become a problem later on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the thing with building, it is everything in the job, like, that changes in costs. Like
Yes.
I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I think it's things that need to be discussed more. And I think there should be more builders doing video and educating people on it. Like, I guess using the car analogy again, like you put fuel in your car, you've either got the dirty old E10 or you've got the super premium.
Yep.
Like, and you might have one or two others in between. Like when you're building a house, that is across the hundreds and hundreds of products that go in the house.
Every item that goes in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you might have a $10 tap, or you might have a $4,000 tap, and everything in between. You might have a $180 bath, or you might have a $60,000 bath, and everything in between.
Yeah.
And like ones that people don't really think of, like door hinges. You buy a dirty old pre-hung set of jams with hinges already screwed to it.
Yes.
Like you buy the whole pack for, I don't know what it is, like $9 or something.
Yep.
Whereas like the hinges that we use on our jobs are $11 each.
Yeah, well, we're doing the same stainless steel hinges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so just in one door, our 3 hinges are costing $33, 3 times the cost of a whole door pack if you buy a pre-hung door set.
This comes back to the education,
Yeah.
educating your client.
Yeah.
And another good example is concrete.
Yeah.
So your your engineering might say 20 MPA. That's the bare minimum you put in your footings.
Yeah.
But we don't do anything under 25.
Yeah.
So once again, I'm educating the client why we're doing that.
Yeah.
Costing them more money, but the long-term jeopardy of the house.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. And even the engineer they choose to use.
Yeah.
Like you go to a volume builder, you get a set of off-the-shelf documents that get sent to 500 of the same homes, or you do an individual house where you pay an engineer to design it for your site.
As per that house.
Yeah.
It's not repetitious.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know. Look, I do feel sorry for homeowners. It is a minefield, and that's why I do believe it's all about the relationship. Like find someone you trust and you believe in, and work with that. But mate, I love the experience you've had. Like so you started on the sunny coast.
Yes.
And then you spent some time up around Gympie, but you've also done some stuff out west, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. So I lived in Gympie when I was young and started school, and my parents sold up and went to Noosa. But out of Gympie towards the coast, out past Wildby, Coondu, my parents owned property. So I think I was the only kid that went to school in Duayne, but rode a horse while my mates rode surfboards. So I went home to the farm every weekend, So I did my apprenticeship, and during my apprenticeship, my parents sold up and moved to the farm full time. So after my apprenticeship, the industry died off, and I went out west for 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to go when I was young, and my dad said, no, you need to be around here and like get a trade.
Yeah.
But he was worried I'd be impressioned by the wrong people if I got out west and hooked up with the wrong people. He was probably right. So years later, when the industry sort of quietened off and I moved back home, a job come up for a jackaroo on a station, and I said to Dad about it, and I think I was 19 or something at the time, and he was like, yeah, you probably need to go. So I did. I spent a couple of years out there. Makes you grow up really quick. Like I had a ball, but you worked hard. You were up when the sun was up, sun was down, and you were still coming back. And it was the era before the natural horsemanship come in, and you didn't get looked after and pampered. You worked long hours. You only got paid a set rate. Didn't matter if you did 5 hours or 15 hours. You just got the set rate.
Yeah.
But I grew up. I had a good time. I got more experience on my horses. Like I thought I could ride till I went out there, and I started rodeoing when I was out there, because every day was like having practice days, like you're riding buck jumpers, chasing cattle, sort of thing. So, but I loved it. I still talk about it.
It's an incredible experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Out in the bush.
It is. Yeah.
Well, this will tie back to Backman's question before, because you're telling me you had a little side hustle while you're out west.
Yeah. So I used to reshape guys' hats. So I used to get $10 a hat. They go buy a new hat in town, and I'd steam them up and change the shape and the bash in them and put gutters in them.
I didn't even know this was a thing until half an hour ago. So.
Yeah.
So you're telling me you shape them, you put the gutters on so it makes the rain fall off.
The rain go backwards and not down your face and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So, and you're into your hats, aren't you? So you've got a collection of Akubras?
I got a collection of my hats, and I've got all my old hats.
Yeah.
So none of my hats get buried, or when they.
So where do they live? Where do you put them all?
I got 3 old ones on the hat rack in my office.
Yeah.
And I've got a roll of them in my shed in my storeroom.
Yeah.
And I'm just about to add some more hooks so I can put them out there. My wife keeps saying that when I get buried, she's going to put them all in the coffin and put my stock whip with it as well. So
it's good, but that's an interest. Like you got to have an interest. So.
Yeah, look, maybe not an obsession, but I've got quite a few. You know, so I have a hat for work, and when it gets a bit too dilapidated, it becomes the farm hat. And then I have boxes with other hats. So I have a good hat that I wear out. I have a hat that I competed on with horses in, and there's always a brand new spare hat. So if something happens, I've got something I can pull out and reshape straight away.
Yeah. Now you do, like when I started, we started catching up more, and I learnt more about you. Like it amazed me how much you do. And I've always felt that people from away from major cities are, I don't know, just they work harder or something than people do in the city. Like I can't believe that because you were telling me like you would get up at whatever time it was, you do all your work on the farm and some stuff with the horses, go to work as a builder, work all day as a builder, come home, and then you're telling me you're out with the lights on and working your horses and shit until late at night like that.
So a few years ago I was doing a lot more competing, and we'd go to Tamworth to compete and stuff. So there was nights it was 7 o'clock at night before I'd start to exercise my horses. And my theory was that they can see in the dark, so it was all good. But you have to keep their fitness and their exercise up.
Yeah.
So I'd be out there at night or really early in the morning before I go to work and work them and keep them going.
Yeah.
But that's my out. That's my other side of things. And it's a bit like the farm. You know, people say you're always working, and Lisa and I've talked about this. We probably do, but it's what we enjoy. We like the farm life.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't live in town, so even though you are working, but it's something that's different.
Yeah, well, mate, I'm the same. I think it's like I have quite a few hobbies or obsessions maybe, but some of them are hard work. But to me, it's my escape.
Yes.
Like I can do a full day doing it, and I feel great.
Yeah.
There's a difference, I think, when you've got a passion, or not maybe not a passion, because I'm very passionate about building as well, but just it's different. It breaks up the routine.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just a different routine. You're still working, but you get a different sort of self-achievement out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only just learnt recently, actually through one of the other coaches, Helen, that we've got in Live Life Build. She does a lot of work with horses as well, but she was telling me that horses have one of the biggest hearts.
Yep.
And one of the slowest hearts. And when you are working closely with horses, she uses horses to do training with leadership and things. And when you connect with a horse, it actually, your heart, when you're connecting properly, can slow right down, lower than what it really should be.
Yeah.
And you can get into a really different space where you can, I guess, learn from the horse.
Yeah, you can. And working a horse in a round yard or by itself and building that bond and that connection, it is so different.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that natural horsemanship, when you actually see them respond to your actions and movements, it's a great feeling.
Do you think working with the animals on your property helps you interact with your team better?
Yeah, I think it would. Yeah, definitely. Because you've got to be more calm. If you're doing the cattle and stuff like that, the guy that gets all wound up and stressed, well, then the cattle reflect that. So then they don't respond how you want them to. And the same with the horses. If you are scared of a horse, they'll know that. If you want to be too jittery around them, they become jittery. The more calm you can be, the better they are. So even horses that are not broken in or a bit flighty, if you can slow yourself down, calm down, they will respond the same way.
Yeah.
If you want to put too much pressure on them, then they will get more flighty.
Yeah, right. No, mate, I think it's awesome. And I love, I think it's fantastic. I'm not at the stage yet where I can go home to a farm, but as you know, we're working on getting to that level. But do you ever take your team to your farm and get them to show them that sort of lifestyle, or use it to build, do some teamwork?
We haven't done that at this stage. The boys have all been out there, and they've obviously helped do a few. If there's a half day or something, take them home, do a few jobs.
Yeah. You could call that team building.
Yeah, it's team building. Yeah, yeah. But no, the boys have all been there, and they like the atmosphere and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So, what's the future for Stuart Home, mate? I know you're putting a lot of time and effort into improving the business, and I know that you're putting a lot of time into yourself.
Yeah,
especially in the more last couple of months.
Yeah. I just would like to keep it, maybe grow it slightly from where it's at.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a good team, we've got a good culture. I think my main thing is just trying to deliver a good product.
Yeah.
Get the right clients that appreciate what we do and the effort we do and why we do it. Utilise, some of my skills that I've learnt. I've been in positions over the years that I've been put in jobs that I had to think, and sort of sink or swim sort of scenario. But I've always been, take a job on, I'd never tell a client no. And then I'd go away and do all my research and find out whether I'd done it before or not.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was 22, quite green, but I had to go out there and actually make a money and survive.
Yeah.
So there was never a job I said no to. And there was times when I did them and I was probably like, I didn't lay enough on that job. Didn't make enough money, but that's, I think, how you learn. That's how you develop and how you grow. So I think for Stuart Homes, I like educating my boys. I like to give my knowledge and information across to them.
Yeah.
And I'm always big on that. If we're doing something that's different.
Do you have toolbox meetings?
Yeah, we have toolbox meetings, yeah. And that sort of stuff. But even today when we're having lunch, we're sitting down, I went to a job on Tuesday, we're doing the pack process on. I took one of my carpenters and we were doing all the due diligence on it, all the different things. So at lunchtime today, we were discussing that, telling them what I saw, why I saw it, how I think we're going to approach. And then the boys will ask a few questions. And I think that's how they learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got some knowledge, I think you need to spread it around.
Yeah. Yeah. So, mate, what drives you as a builder? like you could have kept poking along as you were, but like what for instance made you join Live Life Build Elevate? Like,
always knew that there was something more that needed to be done. And for years, Lisa used to say to me the amount of time I used to put in the office, and she said, you need to charge for these quotes. And I'm like, but no one else charges for quotes. How can I charge for quotes? Like, there's so many other people out there doing it that are doing it for free. As soon as I say that I'm going to charge for a quote, it's not going to happen. And before I joined Live Life Build, I was doing this sort of thing where I was charging a small amount for people. And to me, that was just to get a commitment off them. But obviously, since joining and then doing the pack process, it's expanded and grown, and I offer more and deliver more.
yeah,
But I think that just, I think just the whole development and trying to be better and get better clients is really, to joining Live Life Build was get a better understanding. And Lisa's always said, the amount of time that we did, it was a lot of time, and you'd price jobs and lose them by $500.
yeah,
Whereas as soon as someone pays you as a consultant, they take on board what you say.
yeah.
They appreciate it. They've invested in you. So I suppose trying to develop myself so they can invest in me so I can actually deliver better.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And so what's some other things? Like what's your drive now? Like, is your drive now building, like learning to do a better business, or is it you becoming a better person so you can put that into your business?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Improving my business from a books point of view and developing that side of it, but trying to develop myself to be able to deliver that better.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. And I think that's where ultimately you'll get the freedom.
Yes.
Like from the business that I guess we all strive for. Like
Yeah.
When everything's falling into place and you're earning the margins that you should be earning, and your team's doing what they need to do, your subbies are all understanding, and it's unbelievable. But how much of it is you personally?
Yeah. So my passion, like for building, is the result.
Yeah.
It's problem solving and delivering people what they ask you to have. So because a lot of our work is, well, it's all one off, and you're designing and building something for that client. So them having that smile on their face because you've delivered what they wanted, no matter how quirky it is. And sometimes you don't always agree with it, and you've tried to explain that to them.
Yeah.
But if that's what they want and they're prepared to pay for it, that's what you give them.
Yeah.
To the best of your ability.
What's some of the problems you've had over the years?
Where do I start?
Well, I guess what's some of the problems you've had, and do you think those problems would have been solved putting the time, energy, and money into yourself like you are now?
Definitely. And I think too, I feel and find builders try to please people. Most builders will say, especially like us,
Yeah.
you're trying to please that person and they want something done and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, we can do that. But then it gets into the job and you say, well, that cost you $1,000. Oh, but you didn't say that. We're not paying that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, that $1,000, but your time and your effort and everything else is really costing you $1,500. Might be $1,000 on paper. So that would be one of my biggest things. You're always trying to keep the job flowing, especially when
You're afraid to upset the apple cart, so
Yeah.
you give away too much without knowing your numbers and understanding that $800 bit of work with overheads and time and whatever probably cost you $2,000.
Yeah, that's right. And I think too, just because you are giving all, the client's not always giving all back.
Yeah.
And probably I've always communicated, but maybe not well enough. And then maybe not all your variation forms and stuff like that. So you come to the end of the job and you think that client's really good, but that client is just taking you for a bit of a ride. And you've delivered an awesome house.
Well, you haven't followed through on your paperwork.
That's right.
So you haven't.
Yeah.
You really haven't. Again, it's taking that ownership responsibility.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's your fault. You haven't followed through with things.
Yeah.
But it's something we all, like I've done it. I did it for years.
Yeah.
I used to give heaps of shit away. But again, I think it comes back to like a lot of, and because they're not educated, like a lot of clients feel that once they sign a building contract, they're paying you a lot of money. So they've got you. You're theirs.
Yes.
And they can ask and have whatever they want for the time that they've got you.
Yeah.
So that's where I think there's a big difference between just being a builder that's just chasing their tail, chasing cash flow, trying to please everyone, to being a professional builder that's like, hang on a minute, this is the scope of works. That's what that scope of works cost. This is, you now want this. This is a variation.
Yep.
I'm not doing anything before you sign my paperwork. Once you sign the paperwork, we do the work, and so on and so forth. And you, like, you've only got to do that once and set a standard. I think the a hard part, like you were just saying, like you give so much away, and then something might come up that you're like, oh, I'm going to charge for this, and the client's like, well, you did all this other shit for free.
That's right.
Then all of a sudden, the rest of the job's a battle.
And I think it's just setting that, like you said, the precedent from the start. I remember quite a few years ago, another builder come to me and said to me, how do you deal with your clients accessing the job? And I said, well, we don't give them keys. We never have. So we lock the job up. It's got a construction key, and that's it. If they want to come in, I used to have this little thing called owner's checklist and responsibility thing. There's like 10 items on there. In the renovation world was like, tie the dog up, all these sort of things. Put power out for us if we're outside. We've got to plug into a lead.
Yeah.
If there's no outside power point. And 48 hours notice for the bank to arrive, or if you want to have an access, and we're happy to walk you through. Anyway, this guy said to me, I'm just about finished the job and I've taken the key out of the meter box and my client's got really upset. And I'm like, wouldn't you get upset too? I said, you've given them access all the way through. Now you're at your last payment, you've pulled the key. I said, so you've set a precedent and now you're changing it.
Yeah.
And he asked me what I did. And I said, well, that's how we do it. And that's the same thing. It's, giving the candy to someone and pulling it away. And he couldn't understand why these clients were so upset.
Yeah.
So he was trying to secure his last payment, but they were pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
Because
as they should be, like,
because every weekend they would just go into the house, walking through, having a look at everything. And then that's, he had other problems come from that too, because then once he did that, then they started saying, oh, we saw this and we saw that, and all the little niggly things start coming out.
And that's a big problem, isn't it? Like so many builders aren't executing their contract and setting standards, and then they get to a point where, like, hang on, putting the brakes on, we're pulling back on all this, and that's when the shit happens. And then the clients turn and they want, like, I know I used to wonder, like, what shit, like, you've been awesome, why have you turned into an arsehole now? But looking back, it was all my fault. Like, I'd let them do everything they wanted, and then it's like giving candy to a kid, isn't it? And then saying, hang on, no, give that back.
Give it back when it's half eaten.
But I don't know. Look, a big part of this podcast and Level Up and everything we're doing is, like, by me, yourself, everyone else that comes on the podcast telling these stories. Like, hopefully it helps other builders and tradies have better businesses, and ultimately it helps clients have better experiences. Like, I guess, like, what's some tips out there, like, for any young builders out there or tradies that are maybe thinking of getting in the game or are in the game? Like, I guess, give us your best thing. Like, what's one thing they should do?
Find a good mentor.
Yeah.
Find someone they can look up to, or someone who's prepared to talk to them. Like, whether it's a business issue or whether it's a building issue. And that's something for me. Like, I've always been not scared to go and ask someone else. Not people always want to talk to you, but you go and find out who you have to.
Yeah.
Be a member of an association that you can get support. I think that's the biggest thing, is that what I found in my younger days, so when I was a builder on the sunny coast, and I moved back home to my parents and then got married, and we started going to Gympie, and we're going to, like, the Master Builders Association. The tight, clickiness little guys, they don't want to bring you in. And I think networking is an important thing.
Yeah.
And I've made some great connections with guys from Live Life Build. But, I've got a builder back home who was my apprentice when he was younger, and early days when he went out, he'd call me. And I'm always happy to talk. I wouldn't hear what builder rang me. Whether I know it or not, I'd offer him some advice if I could. Yeah. And I sort of feel the same way, and like a lot of my reps and stuff, I've got a lot of guys in my phone. Yeah. Like, don't be scared to ask the question, even if it's not 100% right question, they're going to give you some direction. Yeah. I think that's really important, because builders tend to be solo too much. Yeah. And that's part of the downfall of our industry. Builders don't want to talk.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think it's a bloke thing. Like, a lot of people are scared to maybe start talking because they know they're going to be wrong with a lot of things, and they don't want to take ownership from it. But and it's a bloke thing. We want to think we're doing things right. But mate, you touched on you've made some good relationships with Live Life Build. Like, how awesome is the Live Life Build community?
Mate, I absolutely love it. It is great. And I'd made some connections, but since we went to Kingscliff and actually meeting some of the guys face to face, That was brilliant, you know.
Mate, I've never experienced anything like it. And I'm not just saying it's because Live Life Builds my business, but like yourself and a bunch of the other guys and girls, like especially the group that come to Kingscliff, like it's truly like a family.
It is, and the thing too is because we've got that closed group on Facebook, people will ask things and heaps of people will give advice or give them some suggestions of what they think. You don't have to take it on board, but there's people who's willing to say, this happened to me, or this is, and it could be a construction thing or it could just be a business question.
Yeah, or a personal question.
Yeah, or a personal question, you know. And you see some of the guys will have a bit of a bad day, but someone else will put a bit of a pick-me-up comment in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. You know,
Yeah. I think it's unbelievable, mate. I've never experienced anything like it. Some days it brings tears to my eyes, like to think that we've created such a community that can feel so comfortable to talk about the stuff that gets talked about. It's just amazing. Mate, thanks very much for jumping on board.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your knowledge. Really, I think blessed that we've managed to meet each other, and I'm really grateful that we got to spend that week on the tools together doing that CLT project.
Had a ball. Absolutely loved it.
And fingers crossed we might have another one coming up. So guys, as usual, if you like the podcast, you got any questions, please comment, share, subscribe, and we can keep this thing going and keep delivering awesome information to create a new residential building industry to help builders, tradies have great businesses, great lives, and ultimately give our clients the jobs that they deserve. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the next one. Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.